Ladies and gentlemen, warembo vijana wa Kenya wote, karibuni tena sana. It is going to be a night to remember. And at this point in time, I think we are ready to actually introduce our candidates. Are you ready? Are you ready? Hey, sasa basi. Tuanze by introducing the Honorable Moses Wetangula. Na ndio huyu anafika jukwani, karibu sana Honorable Moses Wetangula. Another warm round of applause for Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. Yes, indeed. Musalia Mudavadi is here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, a.k.a. Nani? A.k.a. Nani? Caleb. Welcome, sir. Welcome, welcome, welcome. A warm round of applause for Honorable Isaac Ruto. Yes, indeed. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've all been waiting for. Put your hands together and invite the man of the hour, the next president of the Republic of Kenya. Anaitwa Joshua, anaitwa Baba, anaitwa Rao, anaitwa Raila Amolo Odinga.
Nothing to stop you. Amolo Raila. Amolo Raila.
Lenga macho nyuma sasa. Lenga macho nyuma sasa.
Amolo Raila. Nothing to stop you. Amolo Raila.
I'm a youth and I'm depressed. Physically I'm not impressed. Physically I'm not alone. Many like the only complain. No jobs, no food, no future. Neglect to be a leader. Are you serious? I need a leader with a silver mind. I need a leader that can unite. Son of a nation. I need a father, one that can understand the struggle. I tried to kill down, and I only see one man.
Name Amolo Raila. Amolo Raila.
Yes, indeed.
Amolo Raila. Amolo Raila. Nothing to stop you. Amolo Raila.
I know everyone wants to take a picture.
He's the mother of three, but yet there's no breakfast. I'm sick in a hospital bed, but yet there's no doctor. Can't eat, can't drink, can't have fam. Everything's just heavy taxation. I try to learn, I try to study. Blackout, security getting worse, but then I'm the daddy. Corruption, filling the pocket money from the youth. This nation needs a father.
Nothing can stop you. Amolo Raila. 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 Amolo Raila. Amolo Raila.
And as we take those pictures, remember the hashtag NASA manifesto is already trending.
I'm not impressed. Physically I'm not alone. Many like the
Karibu Baba.
Nothing can stop you. Amolo Raila. Amolo Raila. Nothing can stop you. Amolo Raila.
Salimeni Raya.
Amolo Raila.
Wave to them.
Nothing can stop you. Amolo Raila. Amolo Raila.
And we'll have time for all the pictures, but we must move on now. We must proceed. There is a video that we are shortly going to play. I know members of the press are very eager to capture all the pictures. Tuko sawa pale? Haya. All right, kindly proceed to your seats. We'll take more pictures later. I promise you. right in front of the stage says. Let's all take our seats now. Asanteni sana. There's a video that we prepared for you, and we want to watch it now. So let's just, members of the press, I know we're very eager to capture the moment, but we must clear the stage first. Oh, namwona Mama Ngito yuko hapa. All right, and now we're ready to play this clip. Yaitwa Kenya, the video of Kenya heading into prosperity. So let's take a look.
Of a great nation, we stood at the front lines of victory, watching keenly as the Union Jack was pulled down to pave way for the symbol of peace, love, and unity. This was the first liberation, a chance at rebirth and the absolution of all past transgressions. Nothing mattered except hope. Hope is not just the feeling of expectation, but the feeling that all those expectations will come alive in our lifetime. Hope is what tied us together as we danced in unity and prayed, O God of all creation, bless this, our land and nation. Hope was seated amongst us as we discussed the new opportunities awaiting us, and hope did not abandon her children, but was their shield and defender at a time when she was all they had. Our great land flourished with promise, and the fight for independence was now a prominent story, part of a rich history that would mark the foundation of Kenya. We stood on the shoulders of great men and women that made it possible for us to enjoy this freedom, and indeed plenty was found within our borders. This was Kenya's time for an upward turn, a time to make the journey worth it. Let one and all arise, they said. It was not to be, as the country entered a period of social stratification that led to much bigger problems that have plagued us until today. The dark days previously cast upon us were now once again hanging over our heads when we found new ways to ensure we were further divided than when our colonizers left us. An era characterized with political repression and revolutionary terror was to befall the great nation of Kenya, and many fallen heroes to go down with its tumbling walls. Draped in fear and uncertainty, we all recalled a time when we sang, "And our homeland of Kenya, heritage of splendor, firm may we stand to defend." But the joy of that song had long left the ones for who it was intended. Thrown into a whirlwind of bad governance and corruption, the country was at a standstill, with everyone seeking answers and once again looking to the promises of those early days when our country was born. The second liberation in Kenya happened when some brave leaders took it upon themselves to fight the good fight. They stood up for Kenyans who could not speak up on these matters. They fought to open the democratic space and to start the trend of demanding accountability from sitting governments. We all remember Saba Saba as a time that started this dialogue. These brave leaders suffered at the hands of power along those lonely corridors of justice that favored only but a few. Some were detained, tortured, and forced to denounce their mission, but upon release continued to fight for the freedoms we enjoy today. Freedoms we cannot take for granted. Freedoms that govern how we live our lives today and the comforts we enjoy. Freedoms that bind us together like that promise made in those early days. Today we celebrate 54 years of self-governance and independence. We have never been closer to square one. We have gone back in history to a time filled with fear and uncertainty. Corruption is at an all-time high, with ministries being robbed clean of funds meant to develop the nation. Misappropriation of taxpayers' money is nothing new, and our leaders in power have openly told the public that they do not know what to do with corruption in their government. Dear Kenyans, don't you want answers? Isn't it high time your government started working for you? We as NASA want to walk with you into the future and deliver you into the third liberation that we all so desperately seek. A future where each Kenyan can contribute to a greater good for the country. A future with a clear development agenda, complete with accountability measures. A future where the economy grows not just in figures and jargon, but its impact felt by all. A future where we build cohesion so that each man, woman and child will feel included in this development we speak of. Because, as we have seen in the last few years, growth without redistribution is not development, and progress is not reserved for a few special people in our nation. It belongs to you. One man will lead us into this time that will see reforms in education, revolutionize ICT, upgrade our agricultural systems, and welcome developments in infrastructure so that we put Kenya on the map to compete on a global platform with other leading countries for better opportunities. I'm Kenny Luzetu. We are heading into Nane Nane on the 8th of August 2017. Our country deserves a change. Our country deserves a makeover, and it starts tonight. Fellow Kenyans, we have been led off course long enough, and now our man, the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, will get us back on track. Sit back, relax, and let us lead you to Canaan.
Yes, indeed. And I know that we are having also our viewers back at home. Tungependa pia kuambia tuko pamoja hapa na wao pia wakaweza to take a trip down memory lane here with us as we are about to witness for ourselves the launch of the NASA manifesto. Tuko tayari? Are you sure? Hebu ongea na yule ambaye amekaa karibu nawe. Hata uko pale nyumbani. Kamera ziko wapi? Ehe. Waambie mami, daddy, Toto, uko tayari? I'd like now to welcome a young man, and I love seeing the youth being incorporated, in this, journey into election period. He's a lawyer, and he is in the running for the next senator of Nairobi. Mwamjua? Yaitwaje? Edwin Sifuna. Billboard yake kubwa sana pale karibu na Galana Plaza where I work. So let's welcome him as he takes over the rest of the program. Edwin Sifuna, karibu sana. Barubaru, njoo ukiwa umechangamka kidogo. Au sio? Namna hiyo, piga lap kidogo. Karibu sana.
Asante sana, Mwalimu Rachel. I want to welcome all of you here I want to welcome at this particular point my co-host for the evening, the lovely Mama County Nairobi, Mheshimiwa Honorable Esther Passaris. She will be co-hosting with me.
Good evening to the NASA principal, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, Warembo na Vijana, Kenyans beyond our borders. I am honored to be on this stage, and I pledge my commitment to the manifesto being launched to the women and the citizens of this great nation. My name is Esther Mudhoni Passaris, your candidate for the woman representative in the county of Nairobi.
And my name is Edwin Sifuna, your candidate for Senate in Nairobi. You know, we've watched the brief video that I was just played here today to show us the journey that this country has taken to where we are today. NASA's agenda is in re-engineering the state in the most fundamental way by taking the country out of desperation to liberation and prosperity.
Through a people-centered approach, NASA will restore hope to the citizens of Kenya and reinstate their faith in the government. Hear and feel what some Kenyans have to say on the issues of corruption, insecurity in our beloved country.
My name is Rachel Sintamay. I'm 24 years old and I'm from Narok County. Corruption is both a social problem and a political problem. We as a country should start dealing with corruption from top to bottom, because at the top, first of all, there's a lot of resources, there's a lot of power, and at the bottom, we at the bottom as the citizens of this country, we look up to our leaders. What they do is what we... Corruption matters to me because as a citizen of this country, I get affected directly. It's not easy to get money all the time to give a policeman or a person in the office. It's hard to come by this money, and at the same time, it's really difficult to give out money. So if we have a systematic way of following order and not being afraid of being harassed by the law, it's going to be very easy for a common mwananchi.
My name is Ali Bashir from Mandera County. The government is not the cause of terrorism, but they have a responsibility to deal with terrorism, and they have terribly failed in doing that. The spate of terror attacks has never stopped for a while. For instance, the governor of Mandera County had 7 attempts on his life in the last 5 years. And Mandera has been under curfew of dawn to dusk for the last 4 years. Some of us who come from a region in Kenya that borders with Somalia, we were not for the idea of KDF invading Somalia. We wanted KDF to be deployed at the border so that the infiltration of terrorists was stopped. But what I know is whatever they are doing is not working, and we need to rethink the strategy to solve terrorism. There are regions that you think are not part of this country because the government and the terrorists are actually harassing the citizens of this country. That the residents of Mandera do not know which one is worse between the government and the terrorists. They are between a rock and a hard place.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard the views of the Kenyans. These are issues that every Kenyan is very concerned about, and we would like at this particular point to introduce one of our principals to elaborate on what it is NASA is going to be able to do to address the issues that Mwananchi is talking about, corruption and insecurity. It gives me great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to invite the man of the hour, our candidate, and the man who is going to change Kenya and give it a new face, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Hello, hello. Hello. Thank you, Wakenya. Hamjambo. Leo ni leo.
And I'm here as an ordinary Kenyan. And I want to use this platform to send greetings to all Kenyans, wherever they are, around Kenya and all over the world. Kuanzia kesho itabaki siku 40 peke yake tufike 8. Na wale Waswahili mnajua siku ya 40 ni ya nani? Ninyi ndio mmesema. Tunasema we are here as NASA, and we want to work together with the Kenyans to transform our country. We want to refer to the year 2002, when Kenyans had the first democratic change in our country, when we came in with the NASA revolution, the NAC revolution. That time, Kenyans became some of the most optimistic people in the world. Kenyans expected that change would come. And Kenyans started directing what change they wanted. Unfortunately, that was shortchanged. We would like to unite the people of this country, to create one nation, one people, to give equal opportunity to everybody who is born in our country. We want to reconcile our country. We formed a commission that was called Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission to address historical injustices in our country so that our country could move on in unity. Unfortunately, that report has not been implemented. We will establish a commission that will deal with historical injustices. We will deal with extrajudicial killings. We will deal with victims of muggings and police brutality effectively. We will also create opportunities for our women by creating gender development funds under the women representatives in the counties. We will combat corruption. Corruption is a cancer in our society. Corruption is choking development in our country. It is not because of lack of laws. It is not because of lack of institutions, but it is because of lack of the will to be able to enforce the laws and create a proper system in our country. We will ensure that all NASA leaders, and this is in one of the pillars, 7 pillars of our coalition agreement, will sign an agreement that we will not do business with the government. Today we have a situation where those who are in government are themselves businessmen, and this itself is self-generating corruption. We will also bring in, because we have already brought in the bill before Parliament, that is a prompt payment bill, to ensure that those who do business with government are paid promptly. Today, businesses are being bankrupted because they have borrowed money from the banks are charging them interest, yet the government is not paying them, yet the Parliament has already approved budget for the ministries of government. On the issue of infrastructure, we will improve and modernize infrastructure in our country. Our competitors promised 10,000 kilometers of tarmac roads in 5 years. As someone who has been responsible for road construction in this country, I said that was utopia. It could not happen. It has not happened. We will ensure that all roads that are constructed have provisions for pedestrians and also cyclists around them. We will allocate sufficient funds for infrastructural development. We have the SGR, which is now the only project that the Jubilee government can show Kenyans. The SGR was conceived under the Grand Coalition government, and it was supposed to link Mombasa, Nairobi, Kisumu, Kampala, Kigali, and Bujumbura. It's now going to a dead end called Naivasha, in somebody's private land. We will ensure that this project is implemented in accordance with the Vision 2030. Regarding the youth, we have a youth bulge in our country. 70% of our population are below 30 years of age. Kenya is therefore a very young nation. The youth can be a blessing or a curse, depending on how you make use of the youth. If the youth are not empowered, they will become drug addicts, they become delinquents and criminals. But on the other hand, if you provide proper training and education to the youth, so that then you impart skills on them, like they've done in China and in India, then you can turn them into a motive force for wealth creation and development. This is what we will do. Skills training, access to capital, so that youth can have opportunities to be able to be wealth creators and employers rather than employment seekers. This we will do in many ways. At the moment, there are funds, Youth Enterprise Fund, Youth Development Fund, Women Enterprise Fund, and so on and so forth. This just exists on paper. There's a big threat to youth accessing those funds. The bureaucracy, the bureaucratic red tape, get police a certificate of compliance, and then you have to have an identity card which you don't get, and so on and so forth. But those who are fortunate enough to get access to the fund eventually don't get paid, and therefore they get bankrupted by the government. We will change all this in order we will transform the way how Kenya is governed, how Kenya government is run. We will ensure that every Kenyan citizen gets equal opportunity everywhere. We will ensure that your name does not become the only criteria when it comes to access to employment. That if you are Kenyan, whether you are an El Molo, you are a Mjikenda, you are a Turkana, you are a Kikuyu, you are a Mkamba, you are a Jaluo, you are a Muluhya, you are a Somali, you are a Kenyan first, and a member of your community second. This is what we promise to the people of Kenya. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. A big thank you, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, for being truly connected to the issues of Kenyans. Before I introduce the next segment, I want to say Welcome, Sultan. I want to say the tribal divisions are not the biggest divide. It is the divide between the rich and the extremely poor. Baba knows this. NASA understands this. My question is, do we understand? Do we understand the issues of Kenya? Before we go into the next segment, education, housing, and urban development, and our dwindling economy, let's have a look again at what Kenyans have to say.
I'm Lucy Wandoe. I'm 48. I come from Taita County. Nafanyaga part-time job. You're paid according to your target. We are called anytime. So we can do 2 weeks, 1 week, and per day we are paid 800. But around 20K. Na hiyo 20K nalipaga maji. Maji ni around maybe 500. Nalipa stima. Hiyo maybe 1,000 per month. Alafu nimeongea na head teacher. Tukasikizana naye niko nikilipa kidogo because I'm a single woman, so na struggle. So nalipaga maybe 10K per month. Our leaders ndio wanafaa kujua, waangalie maslahi ya Mkenya huyu hapa chini. Mshahara iende juu kidogo. Ndio watu wako na stable life yenye kila mtu atakuwa comfortable nayo. My youth pia, I have youth. Niko na mmoja na graduate December. Ningetaka watafute job. Wana graduate hakuna makazi. So ningeomba na niwasie at least waone ule mtu amegraduate asikae home, apate tu job immediate.
It is now my pleasure to invite Honorable Musalia Mudavadi on stage to take us through NASA's vision on education, housing, urban development, and our economy.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you'd really like that NASA how. But let me speak to this first, and then maybe, with some luck, I may say it as I go off the stage. First of all, let me commend the lady who has just appeared on the screen, because in a minute, she has brought out the challenges that the majority of Kenyans face, but yet she could still afford to give a smile. She talked about unemployment. She talked about underemployment. She talked about low salaries. And she talked about how difficult it is to educate her children. She spoke for many. What does NASA want to do on education? NASA wants to make sure that what we call basic education, which is right from the nursery level, the kindergarten level, right up to the 4th form level, is genuinely free and accessible to all Kenyans. We want to be very clear that we can save the resources if we seal the loopholes of misappropriation and wastage, and we have costed that to carry through this challenge up to the Form 4 level can cost this country between 60 and 70 billion Kenya shillings additional to what the education budget is today. And I can tell you that can be achieved so that we can have our children transiting. Let me just give a very quick example. Every year at Standard 8 KCPE, about 950,000 children sit for the exam, that is KCPE. Every year that they sit, about 250,000 do not transit to secondary school. So if you take 4-5 years, then that means every year you are eliminating 250,000 young children, aged 13, 14, 15 maximum. You cannot condemn them to the labor market because that is child labor. You cannot, at the same time, say that their destiny is over because they didn't graduate. NASA wants to make sure that the whole issue about KCPE is out of the way, so the transition to the secondary level is genuine and everybody is there. Let the child get up to 18, age of maturity, and then we start talking about other skills. So when on the platform you hear the principals of NASA and other players of NASA say they want the uniform, they want the pencil, they want the desk, they want the infrastructure to be provided for by the government, they are serious. Let me speak to her next issue, and that was the issue of the economy. Although, let me not skip one other thing about education. The Higher Education Loans Board. Today, a university student applying for that loan can be on the queue waiting for 6 months. NASA says they will resource the Higher Education Loan Board appropriately and in a timely fashion so that it should not take more than 2 weeks before the university student gets the access to their loan. Honorable Raila Odinga also mentioned something here. You cannot ask these fellows to pay for their loan before they get their job. So we must first get them the jobs. And ladies and gentlemen, if you just ask yourself, and this is now back to the economy, what happens, what do you imagine when you call a rally in the middle of the week in Uhuru Park and the park is full to the brim? What does that speak when it comes to the challenge of unemployment? And this is a serious issue. So the economy that we are talking about, you do not come and feed us endlessly with grandiose projects, but you are not generating where it matters most, having that young man and woman feed themselves. In NASA, we want to make sure that we can control and check the public debt because it is spiraling out of control, and it is expensive debt because there is debt which is manageable, but there is also expensive debt. The government of Jubilee has specialized in going for expensive debt. Commercial debt that there is hardly any grace period and the repayment process starts, and hence the heavy public borrowing, heavy problems that we are facing. And that is why we say we want to make sure our GDP will grow at 7% over a sustained period and move to even up to 10%. We also want to say that we want to make sure that our budget deficit is managed so that we bring it down, we reduce it down to 3% of GDP. If we do that, we shall release resources that will be used to generate sufficient jobs in this country and not the inflationary pressure we are seeing, which is now at double digit. These are very serious messages that are coming out of the NASA research unit and the NASA boiler room, if I may call it. Let me touch briefly to an issue about the plight of our people when it comes to where they stay, whether they're getting adequate shelter, and the way we see it. Ladies and gentlemen, by 2030, 64% of Kenya's population shall be living in urban areas. 64%. And it is not possible that all of them should troop to Nairobi or Mombasa or Kisumu or Nakuru. We must figure out how we shall accelerate a proper urban growth in all the 47 counties, all of them. so that we create hubs within those counties, hubs that will become what you'd call traffic generators for the economy. People can then live there, people can have proper markets in those regions, industries can be created there, and a new broad economy spread out across the country shall emerge, rather than having a centralized process. And hence the need to say that we will commit ourselves to that economic position that devolution must be made to work. I will not address details of that because I believe somebody else will handle that more elaborately. Finally, let me just state once again that we want to have a responsible government. NASA is committed to being a responsible government. We want to make promises and deliver on those promises. People put it very briefly that promise what you can deliver and deliver what you promise. Promise what you can deliver and deliver what you promise. That is the commitment that NASA is offering the Kenyan people. Walk this journey with us. This is our country. You have to change it. You have to be part of the change. You have to drive the change. NASA how? NASA how? Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jonathan Mweke, your Deputy Governor of Nairobi County. Thank you, Honorable Mudavadi, for giving us a better understanding on NASA's stand on these subjects. We are now going to tackle the issues of agriculture, devolution, health, and water. What do the wananchi feel? What is the word on the ground? Tulienda mashinani, tukaongea na Wakenya. Wacha tuone maoni yao.
My name is Alfredo Kemwamoke. I had a passion on the bananas. You know, Kisii is land of bananas. I come from Kisii County. I also grow beetroots. And then as an entrepreneur, growing the two enterprises, it so happened that one of my products was having a very big problem or challenges. So mamas wale walikuwa wanaenda kwa hospitali, wana lack blood, they used to be referred to my farm so that I give them the beetroot. Any single time I give them the live beetroot, they could not take it because of the taste. So that challenge, once I got it, it took me a challenge. I had to maintain my customers. So I had to visit KIRID, that is Kenya Industrial Research Development Institute. That's a parastatal. So when we started, we finally came to this product, ambaye ni jam ya beetroot and banana. I need equipment for making the jam. There is a very big challenge in that, because farmers, when we take the ratio of the farmers and the technical team, in Kisii, farmers, one technical person is required to serve 3,000 people. You can imagine when we reach that farm.
Naitwa Beatrice Wanjohi, nimetoka kaunti ya Nyeri, na mimi ni mjane. Bwanangu alikufa road accident. Wakati walifanya accident walikuwa watu watatu. Kufika hospitali madaktari walikuwa wachache, so hatungeweza, tukawapeleka watupatie ambulance. Wakasema hawawezi, tugojee wamtibu. Alikufa mikononi mwetu, na maisha yangu imekuwa gumu sana kwa sababu nimeashiwa watoto wawili. Watoto wanataka kukula, kusoma, inakuwa gumu sana. Sisi wajane tusisahaulike, tukubuko, watu watukubuke kabisa. Sina yoyote kitu yoyote ya kunisimamia kwa hospitali. Mimi mwenyewe ndio nang'ang'ana, natafuta pesa, watoto wakigojeka na wapeleka hospitali mimi mwenyewe. Hiyo jukumu serikali ndio inaweza kuwa ishukue. ambulance kama pia wangetuongeza mahospitali waweke ambulance mingi, ingekuwa imetusaidia sana.
Ladies and gentlemen, now let's invite a master on the subject, one of our coalition principals, to address this subject. Governor Isaac Ruto. Karibu.
You want me to move closer? Thank you very much. All protocols observed. I want to say that we've just seen what is bedeviling the current situation. In agriculture, there are Kenyans who are ready to rediscover production. They are doing it on their own. But we have failed as a country. From a country that had surplus food to a country of deficits. Even as we talk now, we have no ugali on the table. And that is for sure. Our priority is to rediscover productivity. We must go back to the farmer, the one we just saw in Kisii. We can produce food in our farms. And we can only do that if we eliminate the myriads of middlemen in between marketing and production. And even in the delivery of services that support productivity at the farm level. We need to support the farmer through provision of irrigation, financing, marketing, storage of our food. At the world level, where Kenyans live, we need to have food stores, we need to have silos, we need to keep our food, and we've got to support marketing for the same. We cannot continue to ignore value addition. You just seen that farmer, and it is quite great that that farmer comes from a county that really struggles to produce food irrespective of what we do as a government. We must say echo to the Gusii producers. They kept feeding Nairobi, even when we have nothing from Rift Valley that used to have plenty of food. Agriculture must be allowed to feed the country. And we can only do that if we move forward with a clearly focused policy and working together with the counties. I want to say that we will ensure that healthcare is also addressed. As we talk now, there is serious disharmony in the health sector because the center has refused to empower the counties to move forward on the provision of healthcare. We would like free healthcare for all Kenyans within reach. You've just seen the madam there saying she's wondering how to take her loved ones to hospital. They die because there are no ambulances. We must provide ambulances at the closest possible range for people to be taken to for quality attention in our hospitals. We also need to look at and redeem the confidence that the health workers had in their profession. We cannot continue to be at war with our own doctors. We cannot afford to be at war with the nurses who must be with us 24 hours. There must be a solution to that problem. We must focus on training them, giving them opportunities to further their training. We are all aware that doctors don't engage in matatu business like some of us do. They are just in hospitals 24/7 to save our lives. You won't see another mama crying if we could pay attention to the issues we are raising. We would like to proceed and support proper devolution. We've committed ourselves to devolve 45% of the revenues of the previous year. This is meant to assure that services can actually be provided as proximate to Kenyans as is practical. Because you cannot continue to have monies in Nairobi so that the demand-driven, not the supply-driven system only looks at the vote head and decide what to buy. The end result is that you have got medicines for the wrong things in the wrong places. They'll bring you obesity medicines in rural areas where we can't even have food. We are saying that we would also like to cover the full population with the proper insurance cover, not a situation where our competitors find NHIF at 160 and raise it to 500. End result, it's of no use. It cannot be afforded by the general public. We have got to look at proper insurance that will cover the whole population, and that will have to be subsidized by the state. Because we all need to live, and we must live now. I want to say that that is going to be mandatory, and we are going to pay attention, serious attention to those issues. We would also like to work with the county government to design a national primary health care policy that will cover, ensure that all households are then covered with primary health care. We understand the diseases that are now emerging, the lifestyle diseases, but we should first eliminate as well the primary health care. So once we've devolved the resources that we need to devolve, county governments will focus on what Kenyans expected them to do. We said when we were promulgating the constitution that we, the people of Kenya, give unto ourselves the constitution which we did, understanding it full well and being an understanding that we come from different cultures, and we want to use that as a strength. We believe devolution is what we set out to embrace, and we need to strengthen it. I want to assure you that we will do that as a government. My brother Musalia forgot that even in the education sector, we intend to ensure that counties pay attention to the infrastructure in the primary schools and the secondary schools. We will also ensure that the question of teachers is addressed. We have got a serious shortage of teachers, and yet, come to think of it, they are unemployed for more than 10 years, even after graduating. Yet we have got shortage, that particular shortage. I just wanted to mention that. But I want to also continue and say that we need to provide clean drinking water to every Kenyan. It does not matter where he is. That can be sorted out. We cannot continue to provide water pans for people to fetch water to come and drink. Give them clean drinking water. We can use the water pans for our animals, and we can also use it for irrigation. Irrigation is not just for areas where there are rivers. We can have water pans and use solar power to irrigate, even for one mama. Even very simple. There is enough technology around. The only challenge is that we've not been able to focus on what must be done to move our country forward. Unless we rediscover production, we cannot say there is economic growth simply because you are just building mega projects. Development must be broad-based and must start from below. Places like Turkana that have huge water aquifers, and yet you find the Turkanas having no water. This is unacceptable. We must continue to protect our water resources as we move forward, at the same time ensure there is harmony between the people and the environment. We cannot create one to wage war on the next. I think that is all I wanted to indicate. We must ensure that pesa iende. Asante sana.
It is my hope that we as citizens are drawn to the issues being addressed here today through the NASA manifesto, which is for the people, by the people, through their leaders. Thank you, Governor Isaac Ruto, for your contribution. NASA will transform and touch the lives of Kenyans mashinani, ndani, ndani, ndani. Now, let's take a look at ICT, civil society, empowerment of the vulnerable citizens of our country, constitutionalism, and the rule of law. NASA has so much more to offer the good people of Kenya.
Mimi naitwa Calvin Owiti, Kibera ndio constituency. Niko na 30 years old. Mimi naweza sema place yote pale kuna slums hii world kuna crime. Kulikuwa na ile initiative ya mlango 10. Mimi sijaiona, hata pale naishi sijaiona kitu kama hiki happen. Na sisi kama wa Kenya itabidi sasa tuishi kama mandugu.
My name is Pamela Kamsoi Maktolo. I am from Kibera constituency and I live in Nairobi County. I don't feel secure in my neighborhood. I would count myself among the few Kenyans who probably live in areas where somebody would believe is very, very secure because we have a wall and we have watchmen at the gate and we have vehicles being checked. But that does not mean that we are that secure. So I do not want to imagine what other people who don't live in similar places feel about this, because insecurity has become a different matter in this country. The police could be trying to do their best to keep the country secure, and I would want not to take this up with the police. I would want to take this up with the government. Let me use the example of Kapedo when I want to talk about insecurity in such areas. What exactly happened? We saw a scenario where police hired a few recruits, recruited them, trained them for probably about a month or so. These boys did not have a lot of experience in this, and the next minute we knew they were the ones who were being deployed to go and fight people who have been in cattle rustling for God knows how many years. Back to Baringo, corruption again. The government is not doing enough to secure people in Baringo. How many people have died, women and children, over this cattle rustling? So many of them. What is the government doing about that? For me to feel secure and for me to feel that the government is doing enough to make me and the rest of the country secure, I would want to talk about one specific thing called motivation. I feel our police force is not motivated at all. Look at where they live. Look at how they sleep. Those are not homes. Why can the government do something to actually improve the lives of the police so they feel secure themselves before they can be able to be there for us?
It is now time to welcome Honorable Moses Wetangula to come and share with us how NASA will drive and deliver our nation on these key economic and social issues. Welcome.
Good evening, fellow Kenyans. Today is a day like no other. We are gathered here to give you the NASA dream for the people of Kenya. We know that the challenges that face security in this country are born out of bad governance, poor leadership. Our police force is demoralized, is demotivated, and sometimes end up venting anger on the very people they're supposed to protect. We as NASA are going to ensure, one, that we have an adequate population police ratio to cater for our security. We'll continue with the reforms that the Constitution 2010 envisaged in making a police force turned into a police service that is going to serve the people of this country. We will ensure our policemen and women are not only well trained, but are well paid and are given adequate and proper housing. I do remember when I was a young person at the University of Nairobi, I had an uncle who was a policeman. And every time I visited him, they used to live in structures called uni huts. and there will be 4 families sharing one round uni-hut separated by a piece of cloth. You do not expect an officer treated like that to go out there and put his entire life at the defense of other Kenyans. This will change with NASA. When we opened this discussion and conversation, you saw a Kenyan from Mandera talking about the challenges of security in that part of the country. Part of the problem is our continuing engagement in our neighboring country Somalia without proper strategy. NASA, in collaboration with international partners and regional players, will embark on a phased withdrawal from Somalia to bring back our soldiers to protect the territorial integrity of our nation from our soil and not anywhere else. When our worst competitors came into power, you remember they went around yapping that they were digital. They told Kenyans they will be able to give children laptops without planning on how those laptops will be distributed, stored, or even the teachers to teach the children. The NASA government will ensure, one, that there will be adequate training for ICT teachers for all schools. Number 2, the NASA government, in collaboration with all county governments, will ensure that each and every school has a constructed and properly equipped computer lab from where children will be able to learn and be ICT compliant. That is the only way we can be able to build a nation from childhood with a smart economy that is around the corner, being able to be compliant with ICT. The NASA government, in our plan for the people of Kenya, will ensure that NGOs in this country are truly NGOs, non-governmental. You have seen the NGO Coordination Council turning itself into a policeman against NGOs other than a coordinator for NGOs. This will not happen under the NASA government, because non-governmental organizations play a critical role in partnering with and augmenting government efforts in developing the people of this country. As NASA, we are going to ensure that this country has an equitable level of development. Imagine what we see in a county like Turkana, where we saw a policeman with a Kalashnikov in a class purporting to teach children because there are no trained teachers there. And at the end of the year, that child has to sit the same exam with a child from Kilimani Junior Academy, from Nairobi Primary, and from the academies around the country. That is confining the children from marginalized areas to permanent poverty, permanent exclusion, and they will never get to compete with the rest of Kenyans in achieving the Kenyan dream. For the NASA government, a child in Turkana, a child in Mandera, a child in Moyale, we shall strive to ensure that those children access and enjoy equal opportunities and equal facilities for education in this country. Then at the end of the day, we can say our children can face a common exam and be able to compete. Lastly, in this country, we have had the problem of leaders who are governors. We don't have leaders who serve. Even when you say our brothers saying tuko pamoja, wako pamoja hapo juu na wananchi wako hapa chini. The NASA government, led by our distinguished presidential candidate and the incoming 5th President of the Republic of Kenya, Raila Amolo Odinga, and his deputy Kalonzo Musyoka, and all of us are going to serve the people of Kenya and not to rule the people of Kenya. We are going to ensure that everybody in this country has importance, has appreciation, has a role, and has a duty to make Kenya a better place to live in. And this will happen, just to repeat what my brother Isaac Karuto said, by taking sufficient resources from the center to the counties to ensure that in part that will arrest urban migration. The counties will be able to set up industries, and you will never see under the NASA government a President Raila Amolo Odinga running around the country carrying public checks from the treasury to give to people to say this is development. We shall have a system that works. We shall have a system that responds. We'll have a system that achieves. And we shall have a system that the people of Kenya will not only have a sense of appreciation, but a sense of ownership, a sense of belonging, and above all, we will be able then to create one big happy family called Kenya. Long live Kenya.
There are key things that keep an economy running, and they should not be neglected at any cost. When you think about Kenya, you cannot talk about progress without mentioning business and investment, tourism, international cooperation, sports, and the youth. It is now my singular pleasure to invite up on stage His Excellency Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka.
Thank you. Wakenya wenzangu, siku ya leo ina umuhimu mkubwa sana, na vile wenzangu wametangulia kusema, wakati ni sasa, mabadiliko ni sasa. Wakareketa wengine wanasema kama sio sasa, sasa hivi. And therefore, I'm sure Kenyans will have noticed that the successor to the Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, famously so called, is now the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And goal number 1 is eradication of poverty. My colleagues have basically been trying to tell us, and it's going to come out in a document that we will shortly be unveiling, that our commitment as NASA, the next government of the Republic of Kenya, is to lift our fellow citizens out of poverty. And as we do so, we recognize the important role of our business community. Government cannot and has never been good in doing business, except our competitors who are now in the flour milling business. Unga is important. unga should be properly milled with the full support of the government, not by the government itself. So these days we see government stores, because if you see anything stamped GOK, it is normally never for sale. This is effectively undermining the role of government in the name of subsidies. It is an attempt to catch up with a crisis, a tragedy, because when you deny people food, then you condemn them to poverty even more. We will work with the business community in this country. NASA will always support business-friendly initiatives. KEPSA, for instance, National Chamber of Commerce. Whenever President Raila Odinga will leave and visit other countries, and with the support, suggest Kenya Airways will be able to carry aircraft loads of Kenyan businessmen to go and sign important contracts worldwide, and be able therefore to create the extra employment, the youth badge that Brother Raila talked about, because without giving them employment, we cannot be also condemning them to a future of uncertainty. And therefore government, the NASA government, will do all that it takes to reach out to Kenyans in the diaspora, because they're important. As we speak, the National Treasury does receive on average $1 billion from Kenyans who work abroad, Kenyans in the diaspora. We will follow the example of the Filipinos and the Indians. Kenyans working in Gulf countries and other places do so without proper regulation. We will ensure legislation that will result in agreements with the host governments, those governments that are hosting Kenyans, so that we do not hear of Kenyans being molested out there. And they will be able, therefore, to raise this figure of 1 billion in terms of remittances from Kenyans abroad within the next few years to at least 10 billion. The Filipinos are doing $40 billion. And so as we do this as government, business friendly, we will call upon the business community to reciprocate this in good measure. Regional integration is pivotal to us. The East African community, and some of us in the past have worked hard after the collapse of the East African community in 1977, which actually was used as an example by countries of Europe to come up with the European Union. And therefore, this integration, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and additionally, South Sudan. We even look forward to a time when Somalia, peaceful Somalia, will be able to join East African community. We intend to move very fast as NASA to restore the integrity of this nation internationally. Kenya's image has been dented in the past. We'll come up with a foreign policy that will make sure that Kenyans everywhere will walk across with their heads held high. We will work for a borderless East Africa, where professionals will find it easy to establish businesses anywhere within East Africa, and where East Africans can drive and walk across. We just come from Malaba. We realized that there is a very serious disharmony when it comes to the way goods are cleared from Mombasa, destined for Uganda and other places. The town of Malaba is literally dead. This is something we must correct without necessarily doing violence to the spirit of East African integration. Therefore, fellow Kenyans, collaboration with governments to establish sports talent and development academies is another devolution issue. We are basically a sporting nation. I once said in 2007 that I look forward to a time when Kenya would host the Olympics. Kenyans, look at our world beaters from Kipchoge Keino, Ben Jipcho and others who have become heroes in terms of sports tourism. Well, we have to do something. I know that Kenyans think, in fact, by 2028, we had hoped we could host the Olympics in this country. But I think our friends in government have not only failed to recognize the important matter of Vision 2030, within which this could have happened, but they have actually decided to be rather parochial about issues. Tourism is dead under the watch of our competitors. We intend to lift seriously tourism in this country. And we know this is linked to the important matter of terrorism and the fight against terrorism. You do not fight terrorism by enhancing the scene. And Brother Wetangula has just talked about how to do this. We have to be sensitive to our environment. Therefore, sporting tourism, as I've just mentioned, is important. But we're looking at encouraging Kenyans to visit every part of this beautiful country. I once went and actually opened a tourism trail from the Bird Islands in Lake Victoria to the Elephant Caves in Mount Elgon, and saw the Sitatunga just off Tanzania. Beautiful country. We'll encourage Kenyans to support their own country by really taking seriously domestic tourism. We'll even add another category. Normally people come on package safaris. We'll now encourage individual travelers everywhere. Even as we make better the standard railway gauge, that is an alternative. You've heard my brother say this was conceptualized by us, minus of course the exorbitant costing that has come with it, and carriages that don't look that modern. We have to go for speed trains. We have to go for electric trains. This is the future. This is the future. Therefore, fellow Kenyans, we want to encourage you to come along this journey. We've just given you a tip of the iceberg. But we intend, in all seriousness, to make the difference. This country has suffered for far too long under bad governance. The time is now. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. We now call upon all citizens of Kenya, mabibi na mabwana, vijana, warembo, wazee, huu ni wakati wenu. Let's now welcome back Mwalimu Rachel, who I will hand over this program to, and invite the principals back on stage for us to launch the NASA manifesto and set us on the road to the Kenyan dream. Mwalimu Rachel.
Asante sana. And I think we can all agree on one thing, that even as we go to the polls, we want an amazing Kenya after that. Shukran. And it's for you and I to decide the kind of Kenya that we want, isn't it? Do we want a beautiful Kenya? A magnificent Kenya? Kwa hivyo mabadiliko? Alafu pia tukumbuke amani. Turn to the person next to you right now. Mwambie, I don't care who you are. Mshike mkono. Mwambie, I don't care where you come from. I don't care your age. I don't care your tribe. We are all Kenyan. And I love you, my brother. I love you, my sister. Round of applause for yourselves. Asanteni sana. And at this point in time, because sasa tunataka tumalizie na shangwe na vigelegele na mbwembwe, si ndio? Hata wale ambao wanatutazama wakiwa nyumbani. Sasa nitawaita basi our great leaders to join us back on stage. ili sasa tukaweze kulaunch manifesto ya NASA. Karibuni sana. Na baba anasema anataka kusema mawili matatu kabla sasa hatuja unleash kila kitu, au sio?
Haya. It is now time, and we are talking about the road to the Kenyan dream. The Kenyan dream as coined by the founding fathers of our nation. And you find it in the first verse of our national anthem. Lord of all creation, bless this land of ours. Justice be our shield and defender. May we dwell in unity, peace, and plenty be found within our borders. The Kenyan dream, that is God-fearing, justice is the field and defender, democratic, will dwell in unity, peace and liberty, and then plenty be found within our borders. That plenty was not going to come drop like manna from heaven. It was going through the sweat and toil of the people of Kenya. And this is what we are talking about, to create conducive environment so that we can realize the Kenyan dream. And they say that we are going to fight against the three major enemies of our people: ignorance, poverty, and disease. 54 years down the road, those enemies are still very strong. NASA will confront them head on. So we have here a number of distinguished friends around. There are very many governors here from different parts of our country. We have also, Hassan Joho is one of the governors. We have Governor Akaranga, Governor Ojamong, Governor Paranya, Governor Awiti, Governor Nyagarama, and we have also the Secretary General, Governor Malombe, Governor Rasanga, Governor Nanok, Governor Ongwae, Governor Mohammed Abdullahi from Wajir, we have Governor Kidero, and then we have also the Secretary General of NAT, Mr. Sosion, among us here. Several members of Parliament. So we are here. We have Madam Charity Ngilu, we have Elijah Lagat from Nandi. We have here James Orengo, Johnston Mudama, George Haniri, Chris Wamalwa, Oburu Odinga, Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, John Mbadi, Farah Malim, Mishi Mboko, Ambassador Makwere, Elizabeth Ongoro, Millie Odhiambo, Rosa Buyo, mention that. Fred Okoth, Ferdinand Banyoni, we have Eseli, Sumra, Dan Mazo is here, Richard Onyonka, very many. Judy Sijenyi, Dorcas Kidogo, Resha Meso, Simba Arati, Abdikadir Aden, Tom Kajuang, Janet Ongera, wote ni wananasa. Bwana Guled, Chairman CCM. Gladys Wanga. Ramesh. Yari Mohammed. So we will now unveil the online copy of the NASA manifesto.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. It is the NASA manifesto. The NASA manifesto has been launched now. Ambia mwenzako tingizika tu kidogo. Naona mambo yakibadilika. Tunaimba sote. Naona mambo yakibadilika. Naona mambo yakibadilika. Naona mambo yakibadilika. Iko wapi nduru? Nipatie mkono juu. Mambo yabadilika. Mambo yabadilika. Walio chini sasa naona wakinuliwa. Walio nyuma sasa naona wakiwa mbele. Wanaodharauliwa nipe saluti. Wanaolia sasa machozi yanapanguzwa. Ni mwaka wa urejesho. Ni mwaka wa urejesho. Uliyepoteza ndoa naona ikirejeshwa. Uliyepoteza watoto naona wakirejeshwa. Uliyepoteza nyumba naona ikirejeshwa. Uliyepoteza kazi naona ikirejeshwa. Uliyepoteza cheo naona ikirejeshwa. Uliyepoteza heshima naona ikirejea. Kwani mambo yaba Wangapi wanasema mambo yabadilike? Haya tunaenda. Naona mambo yakibadilika. Haya zunguka. Naona mambo yakibadilika. Twende. Naona mambo yakibadilika. Naona mambo yakibadilika. Naona mambo yakibadilika. Haya sasa nataka twende chini kwa chini. Haya. Chini. Shuka chini. Shuka chini. Shuka chini. Wameiba wataiba. Haya anda. Mara ingine moja twende chini kwa chini. Shuka chini. Shuka chini. Shuka chini. Iko wapi nuru? Wanaoiya duni sasa wainuliwa. Walio peke